I think you are good to go.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I can't see you, but I hope you can see me instead. Hello from Italy and from my bedroom, actually. I just got my headset. I'm going to show you this Eve REST API. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see my slides. Okay, can you see my slide deck?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. So REST API for humans. What I did here is steal the tagline from Python requests, which you probably know already, but the idea is basically to make something very simple out of a complex problem. My name is Nicola Iarocci. I'm from Italy. I do a lot of stuff, but here you can find my GitHub URL and Twitter handle. If you go on GitHub, you also find the source code for Eve, and you can join in if you want to. Eve is basically you have some data stored somewhere, and what you want to do is expose this data to your clients, maybe websites or mobile applications or what have you. So you install Eve, and you get a feature-rich RESTful Web API for free. The idea is that it is powered by Flask, and MongoDB has a storage backend, but we are also working on a SQLAlchemy feature. The branch is almost feature complete right now. We might add SQLAlchemy in the next release. Then we also use Redis for some features like rate limiting and etc. Very quick start for you. There is basically a very simple launch script. If you are using Flask already, you may recognize this script. It's basically the script you find on the Flask homepage. This is because Eve is in fact a Flask subclass. So all you have everything you can do with Flask, you can do with Eve. And once you have your launch script, you have to set up a settings file like in Django and other frameworks. Here what I'm doing is setting up a couple of API endpoints, people and books. As you can see, both endpoints have no settings. The dictionaries are empty. And then you can run your API by launching the script, of course. What you get is something you can query already. For example, here we are doing a card request on the people endpoint, and we didn't even connect a database at this moment in time. But the API is working anyway. It is giving you an empty list of items since we don't have any data to back up our API. And you also get some more metadata. You can see these links keyword, for example, which is basically the implementation of I can't remember now the hypertext as the engine of application status, I think. What you get basically is a description of your API, so you can your client can navigate the API by checking out these metadata. For example, here you see the URL to the parent node and the title of the parent node. So, for example, your client could build its own UE by using these tags. You can disable this feature if you don't want to have it, of course. Empty resource, as we said, because we don't have a data source. Okay, let's connect a Mongo instance. We update our settings API file with a few keywords and settings. And while we are at it, let's define our some validation rule, for example. Here we are updating our people endpoint with a schema. you see a few field names, and for every field you are setting a few rules. For example, the type, string, max length, if it is unique or not. You can even set a regex rule. Don't use this one in production because it kind of sucks, basically. And then we can also define which methods, HTTP methods, are supported by our API. Here we are setting some all caps methods, which means that we are enabling these verbs on all API endpoints, but we can also set different methods at different endpoints. So, for example, you might have some endpoints which are read-only and others which are write-only, and you can then add authorization and authentication on top of these. So, by default, the API are read-only. Here we are enabling post, so add and create items, edit items, replace, and of course delete. While we are at it, let's add some more features. For example, we can add cache control, an additional lookup, item title, which would be used by the links metadata we saw before, and so on. There are a lot of settings which you can add as you wish in your endpoint, to your endpoint. So once your settings file is ready, you get a number of features for free on your API. For example, you have filters. We at this moment in time, we support two kinds of filters. Mongo filter. Here you see an example where we are querying our endpoint for last name, though. But we also have Python filters. Which is basically the same thing that what we are doing here under the cover is using abstract syntax trees to translate this Python filter to a Mongo filter and passing it to the MongoDB database. By the way, you can disable the filter you don't like or you don't want to use on your instance. You also get sorting. This is a MongoDB syntax if you don't recognize it. Pagination, which allows you, the client, not you, but the client, to limit the number of documents to get back from the API or ask for a specific page, for example. Projection, this is very nice because you can, your client actually can pick which fields to retrieve from a document. So you don't always get the whole document. If you want to enable projection in your API, you can, your client can then say, don't send me the avatar, for example, of this picture. In the same way, you can, for example, ask for just one field or two fields, so you can include or exclude fields in your projections. Then we have embedded resources. This is also very nice because what this allows you to do is basically to implement some kind of ORM mapping on top of your API. Let's see an example. Here we have a request for a book endpoint. We have this author field with just an ID for the author, but if we add this embedded keyword, what we are doing here is asking for the author to be included with the response, and what we get is this. So the client is able to elect some embedding. You can disable, of course, this feature, or you can also fine-grain and set which fields are allowed to be embedded and which aren't. You have total control over this feature and the other features we are looking at this time. JSON and XML, by default, both are supported, so you get this kind of payload, but by just changing the request, you can ask for XML instead. By the way, all the meta fields are configurable, so you can change them. I don't know, change the language or just have them suit your style. This is the XML for the same document, for example. We already saw this feature, hypermedia, so I'm going to skip quickly on this. The only nice thing I want to show you here is that if you have pagination enabled, you also get next and last keywords, so your client can browse the API back and forth just by using this feature and not by hard coding the links within the client. There is file storage support. At this moment, we provide a GridFS implementation, which is basically the MongoDB feature for storing a file in a optimized way. What you do when you set up your endpoint, you just define a field as a media type, and this is all you need. Then you can do a curl. For example, here we are doing a post and using the multi-path data form post request. We are basically adding our picture along with the other fields, and when we do a curl request, in this case we are getting a base64 encoded string for your picture. There is also an advanced method, an advanced feature, sorry. Here you get also the file metadata, for example, content type, name, length, etc. Rate limiting, this is powered by Redis, and what you get here is you can define for every single method, you can set the number of requests per frame window per client. So in this example, we are setting one request per 1 minute window. What this means is that when some client sends a GET request on this endpoint, he will get back an extended header, and in this header they get the rate limit 1 and remaining 0, because we only allow one request per minute, and when the Windows is going to reset. So if the client sends a second request at this point, what he's going to get is a 429, and he will keep getting this request until the time window resets. Then we have conditional requests, which allows clients to ask for data only if it has changed on the server. Here you see an example with the if modified since header. And then we have if none match, which supports e-tags, which are basically hashes on the documents. So only return data if it has changed since this e-tag. Eve also supports bulk inserts, so you can send more than one document with just one post. Here there is a very simple example. You see two documents being sent with curl, and when the server sends back his response, you get a validation status for every document. In this case, both documents passed validation, and so have been accepted by the server and have been stored, and you get the updated. This field, for example, updated is what you will use if you want to send a if modified since request later. You can say, hey, send me this document only if it has changed since I stored it. Same with the e-tag, and that's it. There is also a mechanism to handle concurrency control and integrity, the data integrity. This allows to prevent overwriting of documents with obsolete versions. It works by using e-tags. So basically, if you send a patch request, so which is basically a edit request, and don't send your if match header with the e-tag, you get a 403. So the request is refused. But if you add your if match tag and the e tag does not match the version on the server, sorry, you get a 412 precondition fail. Only if you send an updated e tag, the update will pass and will be accepted and performed by the server. So all of this means that the client can only update the document if it proves that he knows the most recent version of the document. Here we have an example of a data validation where a validation rule was broken. And then we have authentication and authorization. There is support for a few standards, basic token age, MAC, which is what Amazon S3 and AWS are using. We will see these in a few minutes. It runs on all Pythons, 3.4 included, and PyPy2. We have our continuous integration system, which is testing all these versions at every commit. And there are more features. We don't have time to look at them right now. Versioning, cache control, support for cores, etc. It's open source, BSD licensed, so you can do whatever you want with it, of course. And then for developers, what we have seen until now is what basically you don't have to code to get and you get for free, as I said before. But you can actually code something with it. For example, you can build your own data layers to add support for, I don't know, some different databases. As I said before, we are working on a SQLAlchemy data layer. All you have to do is subclass the base data layer and override a few methods. Here you see a snippet from the SQLAlchemy branch. And this is how it is going to be used. As you can see, in this case, you don't have to build your endpoint dictionary in the settings file. All you have to do is you decorate your SQLAlchemy classes with a register schema and to bind your class with the invoices endpoint in this case. Then we have an Elasticsearch data layer too, and this is the default MongoDB data layer, which also, of course, is subclassing the base data layer. So you can build whatever you want on top of it. When it comes to authentication, there are a number of features, so we don't have time to look at all of them, but you can do a lot of stuff here. But the basic idea is that you have 3 steps to perform. First, you import a base class. In this case, we are importing the basic authentication class. You then override one simple method, which is check auth. And in this override method, you define your own validation logic. Here we are allowing a client to perform a request only if the username is admin and password is secret. And then all you have to do is pass your own custom class to it when you instantiate it. So the idea here is that authentication is completely in your hands. You can do whatever you want here. We have people calling external APIs just to validate users, for example, or use a side database or whatever you want. This is all you need to do. And then there is custom validation. You can build custom data types. For example, if you need to validate a field against, I don't know, your own VAT for VAT values for your country or custom validation logic, you can do whatever you want. And then you have event hooks, which allow you to hook your own callback function to basically every event which happens on the API. You have events for which are triggered when a post is going to be executed or has been executed, and the same happens for get, patch, put, delete, and etc. Here there is a, I should have, here it is, a very simple example in which we are updating the documents which are being sent from the client. You see this inject field on save callback function. It gets the resource, which is basically the endpoint and the document collections, and it's updating them before they are stored on the database. So you can update and change your data in which is coming in, or in the same way you can update the data which is going out from the API, or perform custom tests of all kinds. And of course, you can build your own file storage class. For example, we have somebody who did a S3 file storage class, or you can store files on your on the file system, for example. All you have to do here is subclass the media storage base class, and that's it. The community, we have a few extensions written by some guys in the community. This is ifdocs, which is a very nice feature. It allows you to have a /docs endpoint, and this is an HTML site, basically, which is documenting your API for your clients and visitors. Here you have a screenshot of the example. This is very, very nice. If Mongo Engine, if you are using MongoDB and Mongo Engine as an OERM on top of MongoDB, you can plug it in. And then there is Elastic for Elasticsearch, and EveMocker for mocking Eve and doing your own tests, etc. There are about 40 contributors to the project. Right now, I think we are about at 45, but basically the message here is if you want to contribute to the project, you are welcome to join us. We are basically from all around the world, and there is a lot of stuff to do, so please consider joining the gang. Right now, what we are doing is working on document versions, which will be released with the next version 0.4, and this is basically document history. So you can ask for a specific version of your document, or even ask for all the versions or the diffs between the versions. And then there are more features, JSON-P and JSON-LD, etc. We are still in the early stages here. And this is the website, pythoneve.org. You find the documentation, the link to the GitHub repo, and the changelog. You can basically find all the references if you go to this website. And this is it, basically. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicola. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think you don't see our faces, but I'm pretty sure that everybody in this room is quite impressed.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. That would be nice.
And
hello. I don't know if we have time for questions, if it is possible to pass the microphone around, or...
Yeah, I don't pass the laptop around, but I can repeat the question.
Okay.
So does anybody have any questions?
So, can you hear me?
Yes, kind of.
Okay. So, what is the status with the SQLAlchemy? When is it going to be there?
No, I can't hear you, actually.
So the question is that when the SQLAlchemy support is done?
Ah, all right. Well, right now it is feature complete, or at least this is what the guy working on it is telling me. To be honest, I'm not working on that branch myself, but it is feature complete. What it needs is more tests. We want to bring the test suite at the same level as the MongoDB branch for SQLAlchemy. I find this is very important. Once we have SQLAlchemy support, we are basically going to attracted to be interesting for a huge number of people. So I'm really looking forward to this release, and also since there are maybe 3 or 4 guys working on it, and they all are, of course, as we all are, we all are very busy with their own work. If there are people in your meeting which are willing to give a hand with the SQLAlchemy, you are very welcome to join us. There is if you go on the GitHub repo, you find and the default branch is not the SQLAlchemy. You have to switch to the SQLAlchemy, and then you can check the state of the branch and contribute to it if you want to. I'm hoping to release the SQLAlchemy with 0.5, which is the next release after 0.4, which we are going to release this week.
Okay, thank you. So any more questions? So yeah,
I have one. So the documents can be, so you can request a specific version of a document, but can the API itself be versioned?
So
can you have versions of the API?
So the question is that how do you version your API if you have different versions for different clients?
All right, there is a version or versioning, I don't remember, setting in which you basically say which version of the API you are providing, and what you get is a slash v1 slash endpoint, and so you basically can have multiple instances of the Eve API at different URLs. This is how we are going to support versioning right now.
All right.
If you go on the website, you find every single setting you can switch on and off, and all of this is explained much better than I can do right now.
The question was, can you embed Eve in an existing Flask application?
I guess so. Yeah, there is some work being done right now. For example, Eve Docs is using a Flask blueprint, which is mounted on top of Eve. So I think I've seen some other people doing fancy stuff with Eve. You should keep in mind that Eve is a Flask subclass, actually. So everything you can do with Flask, you can do with Eve, like add decorators and build new endpoints, whatever you want to. If you go to check the Eve Docs repo, for example, you find a very good example of how to mount your own application along with Eve.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
You're welcome.
So thank you for the presentation. I think you will get some new users and hopefully even contributors. And
I hope so.
Yeah. Are you coming?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Are you coming to EuroPython?
Yeah, I am, and I'm going to give the same talk. So if you a bit longer version of this talk. So if anybody of you is interested in meeting me and discussing the project, or even just ask more questions, see you in Berlin by the end of July, guys.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.